and welcome to Fast Girl Speaks. Today is Friday, October 15th, and this is episode 302. I'm Amy Beth, also known as the Fat Squirrel on Ravelry, and the FatSQRRL on Instagram. How are your faces? I send squishes through the internet. Squishing of your face. Just like I'm gonna squish it. Oh, like that. Oh, like that. Ooh. Do you notice I'm still not wearing sleeves? Did I mention that it was October 15th? What is happening with my hair? I think I slept with my, oh yeah. That's an exciting ridge. That I slept with my hair in something last night. You're welcome. Whatever, me and Gus and Annie are just hanging out. It's okay. It's okay. So this week's episode is going to have some patron prizes. It's going to have some quilting and some yarning and some sewing and some shameless self-promotion, which I'm going to do right now before I forget. Okay, so there's actually an update in the shop tonight, which is probably already like yesterday or like 7 weeks ago when you're watching this. So you can totally just skip ahead if you want to. But like just time and things. Oh, it's the October compression. Like the other day we were at the doctor for my child and my teen. And they were like, okay, so you need another appointment in 2 months. We don't have exactly 2 months, but we've got that. How about January 5th? And I was just like, that what? I was like, how's that so fast now? So yeah, right? The compression. And then like some of you are going to Rhinebeck, some of you are in Rhinebeck. Sending you so much love and many wishes for safe journeys, and like sending so many bubbles around your little selves in the festival to like keep your little self safe. Those both those things. Oh my gosh. But yes, so the compression, and things have gotten away from me. So yeah, there's an update in the shop. There'll probably still be things when you get there because I didn't tell anybody else either. They're all finding out when you are, because sometimes I'm not the best. But yeah, so there'll be an update today, and then the next update will be actually November 15th. So I'm trying to do like firsts and 15ths so that just like is easier to remember. But November 15th will be some winter fabrics, some like solstice-y fabrics, some Christmassy fabrics, some like winter festival fabrics. I'm looking at them right now. They're right over here, and I'm pretty excited about them. There's definitely some woodland creatures. There's definitely some nutcracker. There's definitely some villages. I'm just saying. I'm very excited. So those will be November 15th. So yeah, because lots of you ordered library bags, so I get to sew those. And so then I'll sew the winters. Okay, but so for now, these are coming out. Now, these will not ship out instantaneously because we are in my household down to 1 car. And my husband's little like 94 Ford Ranger, bless its heart, has finally gone to the great car beyond, I think. There's still slight hope that we're holding out, but there were things like engine and crack said. And so I'm just gonna... But, so because of that, like, things have kind of been a little bit kooky wacky, and like, and I'm behind and ahead, and then like also crossed. It's just, they'll ship in about a week from the time you order them. Hopefully less than that, but I just want to give myself a little room, because on top of that, like I've had just too many balls in the year, and so I missed one of my balls. I dropped my leather ball. I forgot to order the leather for the handles, so I'm a little bit behind. So, it was one of those situations where I was like, hey, where's that leather strapping that I ordered? And then I went to check it, and it was still in the cart. And I was like, ew. Glad I didn't write anybody a strongly worded email. But shameless self-promotion. So here's what's in the shop right now. With this super cute, like, knitting tattoo. It's like knitting flash sock bag with like the cutest little sheeps and scissors and little, like, what are those? You know, like the bird, the old school bird tattoos with yarn, and one's got like pearl written under it. Very darling. There's a little crochet granny square on there, a little tea kettle, your little yarn ball, just so super cute. So got those guys. And everything this update is just with our traditional unbleached lining. And then large wedge with these 3 options. Now, these both have like metallic accents, which I think you can see here, but it's not as clear on the internet. So, like, beautiful cotton bowls. I just love these colors, right? Like a polka dot that's gold and this metallic. Shut up. Here comes the train. And then we have these, which are kind of a sort of, this line of fabrics is all related. So again, kind of with the like line work, we have just like a variety of tea kettles and coffee pots and maybe even a cocoa pot, but all in this gold metallic on this beautiful teal. And in all likelihood, what you're seeing here is the best color, because the photograph just did not want to get what color this was, which is very weird. I tried everything I could think of, but it just was not having it. And then yarn balls. So again, in a great line, sort of like stampy kind of effect, we have these great yarn balls. So these are all large wedge. So these are all great for like 3 to 4 skein projects. And then we have, well, this is the one fabric that's not related, but I loved it, so I just threw it in. But we have this great community kind of like fun folks out in the windy wild. You know, it just seems like a very, love these colors. I'm really in love with like these taupey neutrals right now. Who am I? I don't know. But it's beautiful taupey neutrals with some like foresty green in there. And it's just a nice, it's got like energy and movement in it, but it also feels very peaceful in a way. I don't know how those 2 things exist in the same time frame, but they do. In the same image, excuse me. Or time frame. What else? And then we have the big fancy. So we've got the black yarn balls. And if you can see, that is like a copper metallic. Leather handles with copper rivets. Now inside the hardware is all the brass, because I'm keeping this one, so I just spit on my own bag, not yours. The inside, the coppers, excuse me, the hardware is all the antique brass, because they just actually don't make it in a copper. But so yeah, ooh, so cute, right? You got your pocketses, your big yummy pocketses. It's got it in this colorway, and then again with this like kind of like grayish, sort of taupish, like, ooh, who are you? And I love that it reads just as a graphic. Like, it doesn't necessarily like read as a yarn ball to anybody unless they're like looking for it, or unless they're closer. So I like that it has a more abstract flavor to it. But again, you have now on this one you have a very, like a dark, like a, not like a, it's a gray. I guess it's a medium gray, quite frankly. Again with the copper rivets, but inside you have the standard brass again with the pockets and all the yummy goodness. So this fabric is a cotton linen canvas, but it is interfaced with a heavier interfacing, like a batting sort of interfacing, just to give it some more rigidity. It will still close up if you want the smaller shape option. So if you like the kind of like old school carpet bag look, they still compress fine for that, but it has enough body that it'll stand open on its own if you just want to knit from it directly. So yay! So those are all in the shop tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern. Yes, Okay, now let's do more administrative goodness since we're here and we're administrating. Ooh, I think am I slouching more now, or is that whatever? So we have prizes. So if you're a patron of the podcast, whether that's via Patreon, PayPal, Ko-Fi, what have you, I like to draw prizes every quarter, and I do usually 3 prizes each quarter. And it's time to do prizes for the 3rd quarter because, as I mentioned before, it's time compression time. Right. We're in the 4th quarter, y'all. Let's breathe deeply. So yeah, if you're interested in becoming a patron of the podcast, Patreon is a great place to Patreon is actually, I think, what it is, but sometimes I just like to mix it up. Is a great place to find out more information. We're doing some Zoom meetings this month, Zoom VKNs, virtual knit nights. There's a Discord group if you want to, where I found out great information about, for example, this book. So somebody mentioned this book. It's called Sacred Actions, Living the Wheel of the Year Through Earth-Centered Sustainable Practices. And it's by Dana O'Driscoll. And she was interviewed on the Druidcast, right? I think that's what it was. I just edited myself out. It's like I felt the ramble, and it was getting so rambly and lacy and like unstructured that I was really like, even you, my lovely friends, are not interested in being with me. But this is really interesting because it's focused on the wheel of the year. So the book actually begins with winter solstice because that's traditionally like the beginning, right? We're moving into the light. But I mean, that feels very male-centered. But, you know, that's just me. That's just me. But it's got different ideas for like different practices that you could use to try and be more in the moment. It talks about like things that are, like, for example, I just opened to developing seasonal food rituals and honoring food, and/or sacred gardening. So it's a very interesting, I haven't gotten deeply into it, but again, I would have never heard about this book if it hadn't been for the group, and I really appreciate that I get all these different voices there. And one of the things I really love about the book, I'm just going to be honest with you, is this binding is maybe my favorite thing ever. It's like a paperback. It's like a paperback hardback hybrid because it's this very heavy craft stock, and the end papers are glued into it. And it's the layout of the book, like just the visual experience of the book is very calming. I don't know if it's a combination of like the paper color, the typeface, the fact that the pages are full but not so dense that I feel like I can't enter them. I don't know what it is, but there is just something. This book's got good energy, and I'm here for it. But anyway, so just fun stuff like that. This happens. Also, people are just showing their knitting things, and then we're talking about the Stephen West Mystery Knit Along. Oh my goodness. I'll show you that in a minute. But before I do that, let's talk about prizes. That's where I started this nonsense. So here are the prizes that we're doing for this quarter, in no particular order. I have this beautiful skein of Miss Babs' Kira, which is 100% superwash merino wool, 560 yards for 8 ounces. And this is in the coffee break colorway. What I've decided is that there are some yarns that I've had that I love so much, but I'm not using them. And so I'm going to move them on. And I think this was a great one to start with. So there's this guy. I mean, right? So good for this time of year. And then here is like a project's worth that needs to have a new home. This is all hedgehog fibers, which I love, and I actually bought at one of Paula Emmons Feasley's, we send love to you, Paula, retreats in Washington, Illinois. And so it has lots and lots of good energy and love in it. And the reality is I just haven't knit it yet, and that's a shame. And so maybe you can make good use of it, because aren't those colors amazing together? Did I say that it was hedgehog? I think I did. And then the last one is I made you an apple picking bag. It's really, don't pick apples in this bag. You cannot get enough apples. But it reminded me, like, the fabric combinations are very orchardy to me. Oh, there's one flying goose. There's a flying goose, not a, just one. But it just felt like very orchardy fabrics to me. And it's lined with a linen. And it's just one of these, like, beautiful, inspired by rice, Japanese rice bags. And I love, a friend Corey made one of these for us a few years ago at a knitting weekend that we did. And it's one of my most loved project bags. And so I just make one for you too. So those are your 3 options if you win a prize. If you're the first person, tell me what you want. Second person, give me 2 choices. The third person, you know, give me your top choice just in case. Because sometimes people are like, I don't care, whatever sounds good. Okay? Okay. And so our winners this time are Karen Provost, Kathleen Harold, and then Allison Carlisle. I don't know why I didn't sing your song, Allison. I was intimidated by the thought of Allison Krauss reacting horribly to my singing. That just got me for a second. So Karen Provost, Kathleen Harold, and Allison Carlisle, you win! In that order. So if you would, just send me your real human name, your actual mailing address to, you can either use the contact form on my website, fatsquirrelfibers, that's it, .com. You can contact me via the Patreon page if you are a patron. Or if you don't do Patreon, but you just like do a Ko-Fi or PayPal, you can contact me with the email address that you used to send the actual dollars of the world into my actual pocket. Okay? Okay. So then let's do the podcast. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So, sewing. Okay, so. I finished this a few weeks ago, but it was a test sew. So, Sew Liberated has just released their nest pattern. And it's basically like, they call it a sweatshirt. It's a very relaxed, why is my phone not opening? It's a very relaxed top made with a knit fabric. They suggested using, like when we first, birch organics interlock, which is what I used because I don't have a lot of familiarity with sewing knits. And so I don't have as much experience to know, and I don't have an in-person apparel fabric shop. So it was definitely one where I was happy to take the suggestion. I purchased mine from, okay, I'm doing the wrong thing. I purchased mine from Fabric Worm, which I've always had very good luck with their customer service, their speediness. They're like kind of like a primary birch fabrics supplier because birchers are also the ones who do like the Charlie Harper fabrics and things like that. So I was very pleased with this. I will say I've not been pleased with Birch Fabrics flannel in the past, but there are other fabrics I have always enjoyed, and this interlock appears to be no different. It has kind of a, almost like a silky surface. Silky is not the right word, but it has a nice smooth surface. And it has a good amount of body. It's just highly enjoyable. So again, this is the Nest. That's what I was going to do. I was going to show you the size range. Sometimes my brain, she doesn't do what I want her to do. The size range is 38-inch bust to 65.5. Now that's the finished measurements, okay? Because that's what I happened to click on because I was doing the wrong thing. The sizes are size 0, 31, up to 34, which is a 58.5-inch bust. And I pretty much squarely fall into the size 34 for bust and hip. And yeah, centimeters, that's 79 centimeters up to 147 centimeters. And that is what's, I made a 32, I think. Yes, I made a 32. And mine still has lots of ease. You can see my finished object here. So you can see I went like a little bat noodles with the embroidery, but I gotta say, it was so enjoyable. I loved doing the hand stitching. There is something about just having hand stitching to do at night. Like, you're just gonna do the whole thing. It's like coloring, kind of, I guess. Like, no, it's not even like coloring. It's like, because you don't have to choose a color. For example, in this one, I just knew I was gonna use the same. I used like a pearl cotton and just used the same one through the whole thing. So it's even more mindless than coloring, and you just know you're gonna stitch this whole thing, and you don't have to make any decisions, and you just keep doing it. It's very enjoyable. It's kind of like the sock tube knitting, you know, when you're making the foot, like the tubey parts of a sock, but even more so for me because it moves a lot faster. It's very pleasant. Things that I did when I pieced my squares, I did use, you can see I did not use the same quilt block that is used. I just was personal preference. I do love the star block. I just wanted something slightly less kapow. That's totally just a me thing. What was I going to say? Oh, I did use foundation papers to do my piecing, and like there's all the information in the world out there about using foundation papers. I used half square triangle paper, just because I had some, and I think you can actually even print those. Like, I'm sure there are free versions available to be printed, because you can just use like your printer paper as foundation paper, piecing paper. That was a lot of words. But that was mostly because, I don't have a ton of experience doing knits, and I wanted to make sure that I, didn't get into trouble with having things being totally out of control wonky. What else did I do? I did use my walking foot, and I did all my piecing just with straight stitch. I didn't do like a lightning stitch, I didn't do a zigzag, and this, I'm pretty sure it's said in the pattern. I was a tester, so I do have now the final pattern, but I haven't looked at it, to be honest. But you can totally use just a plain straight stitch for your block and your piecing your block, because there's a lot of ease in the shirt. There's not a lot of stress on those seams, so you don't really, I've not had any issue. And of course, then I put in hard stitching on top of it, so it, you know what I mean? Like, it would not have benefited me at all to use some sort of stretch stitch while doing the piecing. I used a walking foot when I was putting my triangles together, when I was putting my half square triangle squares together. I did use a walking foot, again, just to try to get it as even as possible. And then for my hems, I did just use the lightning stitch for my hems, and I gotta be honest with you, I'm totally okay with how they look. They might have a slight warble, like a teensy bit of puckering, but I mean, less than I would notice on like a commercial ready-to-wear item, right? So yeah, and talking about the beautiful thing about making your own clothes, how long has it been? I mean, unless I buy a men's t-shirt, the sleeves are never long enough. Like, the sleeves are always like this to here on me. So being able to have a sleeve that's actually like covering my wrist, so exciting. And so you don't have to do the quilt block thing if that's not your jam. People who made them with just solid colors looked awesome. Some people made them just like color blocking. So some people just made the square one color, and then there's like some little like triangle pieces here, and then the neckline. I mean, you can see them all on the Instagrams, of course. But yeah, I'm pretty pleased with my project. It was totally fun. And then also I went to a sewing weekend with friends because I'm a fanciest. I'm not gonna lie, it was excellent. We went to a knitting store in Newburgh, Indiana, which I had never heard of, and it was a lovely knitting store. Let me see what it was called. Boop, 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 drink your tea while I'm looking for the name of this shop. Not Newburgh, Newburgh. Oh when are they just going to get the chip that puts into my brain and I just can automatically. Sheepskeins Yarn Store. So Sheepskeins Yarn Store. And that was a lovely store. It's very big. They had lots of selection and they have lots of things that I had not seen before. They had like Queensland, which I don't think I've ever seen in a yarn store before. They had tons of Barocco. They had tons of Noro. They had good Cascade selection. They had a ton of Madeline Tosh, Malabrigo. Yeah, it was a lovely store. They had lots more. It's definitely the biggest knitting store I've been into in the Midwest that I've been into, I want to say. And actually, I would say, I mean, I haven't been into Webb's for 20 years. But even, I would say they have more yarn on display than Webb's does, because Webb's is primarily a warehouse, or at least it used to be. So yeah, they had a ton. Wild. Oh, Simply Sock Yarn. I don't know, maybe Simply Sock Yarn might actually have more skeins in a store because, yeah. Okay, so Simply Sock Yarn, also in Indiana, they both have an amazingly large selection of yarn. How about that? They're both lovely. So we went there. There was a hot tub. We're on the Ohio River, and let me just discuss, I was not prepared for how nostalgic it made me. I did not grow up on the Ohio River, but I grew up outside of Cincinnati, which is on the Ohio River. And like, there were lots of festivals that would be on the river, or, you know, like, it would just be, like, I don't know. It's strange, because it's not like I'm like, oh, we camped on the river and hung out. No. But I am a Virgo rising, but I am still a Cancer. Like, anytime I am a water-based sign, and when I am near water, I do feel much more at peace than I do anywhere else. But like, it just, it was beautiful. Like, it just made me feel very at peace and very centered. And there was like this constant, like, beautiful breeze coming off of the river. And like, we got to watch the barges go down the river. And then we went to Newburgh, Indiana is actually on the river. It's an old shipping town. And so there was like we got ice cream and sat next to the river. I mean, I was not prepared for how, like, it would make me feel, but it did. So, thank you all for being amazing podcast watching people, because if it weren't for podcasts, and like you watching my podcast, but you also watching other podcasts and supporting other podcasts, I wouldn't meet any of you, and I wouldn't get to do these amazing things. So thanks. But as was originally mostly going to be doing sewing, but I was like, I'm not sure, like, I don't know if you've watched this show before. I'm slightly neurodiverse. And so I do have trouble focusing in groups, and so I was not sure if I would be able to do anything complicated, and I'm glad that that was my instinct. So I just took pajama pants, and I love the Arthur pattern, which is also by Sew Liberated. I love them for pajama pants because they're obnoxiously large. You can dance inside your pants, like you can just shimmy around. And like, you can feel like your body move in the fabric, which I don't know why, but I find that to be the most delightful feeling. And it's getting cold. It's getting cold, right? It's getting cold. So I needed some. So originally when I made the Arthur pants, I did a wearable muslin made with just like this flannel that I got at Joann's for like $2.89 a yard, and it does definitely have gnomes on it. Don't worry. But I've been pretty pleased with the fabric. I mean, it's definitely not high quality, but it's pilled like an amount that I would expect from a budget flannel. And for pajama pants, I feel like it's a pretty good option, and they have approximately 8 trillion prints. So I definitely now have pink piggy pajama pants and these super sweet sleepy bear pajama pants. And then, of my fancy fabric, I believe it's Heather Ross. I believe it's Gumdrop something. But several years ago, I bought enough of this flannel to make my kiddo at the time, now a teen, pajama pants, and then I was instantly very jealous of them. In like a green, like I want them and I will take them kind of way. Not really, because I let them have their pants, but I did buy myself enough fabric at the time to make them, but then I could never make myself pants because I was always too big for the sewing patterns. Like I tried to make the pants number 1. Wait, they did not even go on my body. Didn't even go on my body. So it's only been recently that I've found pants patterns that fit me. Muna and Broad is a great example. So Liberated. I think those are the only 2 companies that I've made pants from. I feel fairly confident about that. But that meant it was finally time to make my awesome mousy pajama pants. Right? There's like little mice, and it's like very little style where they're like living inside of tree trunks and like they're having little dance parties on the tree trunk. Let's see. They're making tea. Just so delightful. So I'm living my pajama-iest life. Hooray. So that's all the sewing I've done. Oh, and then that's not true. I also started on this quilt, which is with the Cider Fabrics, which is a print series that was released last year. And so you just use a jelly roll to make strips. The jelly roll are strips. You just sew 3 strips together, and then you just make half square triangles with them. So you like cut each of those. You cut each 3-strip unit into 6.5-inch squares, and then you make a half square triangle with your, in my case, I used Essex linen, 6.5-inch square, and each little square you sew in half, essentially. You draw a line through the middle diagonally, and you sew a line on each side of that line. It sounds like a lot more than it is, because I'm saying the word line so many times, but it's really nice. And so I have like all these like, hooray, beautiful squares to make a quilt with. And I think I still have another jelly roll that I can use. So I think this is actually going to be like a full-on bed quilt. Right. I mean, I'm basically the fanciest. Oh, and I have scraps that I can maybe make you a bag with. Because here's some scraps. Oh no, wait, those are ones. Oh, here we go. Here's ones I haven't sewn. Why didn't I sew these yet? What's wrong with me? So you cut each of your little strips into this kind of square, and then you have your little linen square, and then you draw a diagonal line on your linen square, and you don't have to use a fancy pencil because you're going to cut this line. You're not sewing on top of it. Then you sew a 1/4-inch seam on each side of that line, and then you just cut it down the middle, fold it in half, and you'd have 2 perfect half square triangles. And if you're like, I'm not the straightest sewist, I'm kind of wonky, I'm not great at doing consistent seams, then you can get this super clever ruler called a block lock. And it has like this ridge down the diagonal. So it like, you put it on top of your finished square. You're like, oh, my square is kind of wonky over here. You put it on top of your finished square, and it like just slots up against this seam, and then you just trim your little square so it's perfect. And then when you sew them all together, it's more likely to be a little bit more consistent. I mean, the world is fancy, y'all. I don't know if you know about it, but it's pretty fancy. It's crazy. Okay, so that's on my sewing. And then knitting. Oh my goodness. Okay, I only have 2 things to show you because apparently I didn't bring my sweater over. But I'll show you next time. I did get some good work done on it though. My little colorwork sweater that I'm working on. But I will be honest with you, the Stephen West clue dropped last week and I've been dedicated. So I'm about to show you spoilers of the Stephen West Shawlography mystery knit along. So if you don't want to see it, I'll put a skippy thing where you can skip to the end of this. Remember to put the skibby thing in me. Do it. Okay, are you ready? Okay, so here are my colors. Oh my gosh, and also the ladies at Sheepskeins, we're all gonna do the mystery along. So, hi ladies, if you're watching. I hope you're niddling alonging. Okay, so here are my colors. Okay, this is like a hazel knits. This, I have literally no idea. This is like a Madeline Tosh. This is another Crafty Girl. This is Pearl Soho Quill, which I'm surprised how much I really like this yarn. It's like a linen wool. This is Alpaca Sock by another Crafty Girl who makes the most beautiful colorways ever, but also does an amazing job doing this. I think is still considered variegated, but she does a beautiful job on tonals. But this is a beautiful, like it's one of those fringes, like it's in between a tonal and a variegated, because it just has this beautiful undulating color palette in it. Oh, it's so gorgeous. But anyway, so here are all my colors. And then do you want to see? I mean, like I'm definitely tangling things up. Things are going crazy. I finished my clue number 1, and then clue number 2 released this morning. But I only have like a row or 2 of clue number 2. So if you finish clue number 1, you should be okay to see this. I don't think it'll be too spoilery. Are you ready? What? Okay, so it's harder to see because it's not been blocked. And this is kind of almost got like a ribby texture to it. But like you have these amazing like wedges. Oh my goodness, give it to me. You have these amazing, awesome wedges. And then this is the thing that I am surprised at how much I like this. These like V's here from like a slipped stitch that you then knit into a bunch. I think I could go for like a whole thing made with that. I love that texture. And then there's these like weird I-cord things that are happening here, which I'm like, is something gonna happen with those later? Are we gonna come back to them? Or it's fine if we don't. I did not love making all those little I-cord thingies. I'm not gonna lie to you, I did not love it. But it is pretty fun. And wackadoodle! So I'm here for it. So yeah, I really love this part so much. I'm pretty excited about it so far, y'all. Pretty excited about it. Oh my gosh, and did you see that he is making one? He's making like a Shawlography inspired sweater for his dog. Done! So cute! And of course his dog's name is Brioche. Dead of it. Dead of it. Dead of it. Okay. And so then the only other thing I have to show you is my friend Joanna, who is Knit Spin Farm, who, by the way, makes the most beautiful yarn and bats in the whole entire world. She posted, I'm so glad she did, because she's done it before, but I always forget. She posted, just here. Oh, there it is. It's under others. She reposted a link to wool-aid.org, which is a website and an organization that accepts wool knitting. It needs to be at least 80% wool, and it needs to be very tightly knitted, very firm gauge. And they accept hats, scarves, mittens, vests, sweaters, blankets, and they do not need to be superwash because usually the folks that these items are going to are not folks who would have access to regular washing machines, or if they have access to them, it's not like in their homes. It's not going to be used that often. So, you know, so many times when you do donation knitting, it needs to be superwash, and superwash just is not as warm. And so it just breaks my heart a little bit to make things that are supposed to keep folks warm when I'm like, but we could make them out of the regular wool and it'd be warmer for folks. And I understand why. Don't get me wrong. I understand why. But it's exciting to get to have the opportunity to knit some stuff that's out of regular wool. And I have been sitting on this color combination for far too long. Are you dead? It's Halloween time, so you can be reincarnated. It's okay. not reincarnated. You can come back as a lovely spooky ghost girl. It's okay. So this is Beaver Slide Dry Goods. They have 100% merino. Their yarns come in like kind of different mixes of merino and mohair. So these happen to be 100% merino. So if you don't like what can sometimes be slightly prickly with mohair, mohair does add a beautiful amount of strength and some nice sheen to knitwear. But if you're knitting a hat or something where it's going to be right pressed against your skin and you want just a merino, they have those as well. This is the yellow is the colorway Lemon Lichen, and then the kind of like tealish, aquaish is Meadow Mist. Right? Okay, I'm going to be right back. I have to text the teen. I'll be right back. They're still on fall break, so there was a question of like whether they had to ride the bus home or if Dad was home, we could come get them in the car. Sorry, kid, you gotta ride the bus. Our bus system is terrible in Indianapolis. So I'm sending out blessings to my child. It's really, I mean, I don't understand how we want people to ride public transportation, but then we make it completely unreliable, and let's not get into it. But here's my little brioche hat so far. It's not very big, hi, but you know, how fun is this colorway for brioche? Should it? And I figure brioche is a great one for this because it's just got a natural 2 layers of warmth in it. So, I mean, hi. And so I'm hoping that the lovely, and this, they do knitting primarily, Wool-Aid does knitting primarily for like 6 to like 18-ish is kind of their main range, I think is what I saw at some point. And so I hope that the beautiful human being who gets this hat is not like, but is instead like, yes! Oh, so it's good sometimes, you know, like I completely am of a camp that when I do knitting for donations, it is completely for myself. It would be a great benefit if somebody would get use of it on the other end. And hopefully they will because we're attaching like fossil fuel miles to it for transportation and to get it to folks. And I'm sure it's appreciated on the other end. But it is definitely like something that I do in a selfish way because it does feel like a small voice in the overwhelming din of kindness that we can put out, that I can put out into the world. So I think that's all for today. Sorry if we were, not sorry. Just acknowledging I was a little bit more like ka-ka-ka than normal. I think our gardens, I'm just looking out at our little like strange like little wildflower patch, which has become very windblown. Like all of our zinnias and like all of the like beautiful, I don't know what it is. It's not baby's breath, but it looks like that. Like all these like teeny little beautiful snowflowers. And like some of our thistles and some of our, but they're all just like laying down permanently, but it's okay. But we had this garden spider, this big, beautiful yellow garden spider. And why are spiders all girls to me? I think it's Charlotte's Web. I think that's exactly what it is. But she's huge. Like her body is almost, her body's definitely as big around as my thumb, and I don't have a small body. So we got to see her, like, cause she's right, like, on our path to go out to the garage. So we pass her every time we go in and out. And so it's been really fun to see her grow through the year, and like, we just check on her, but we haven't seen her for the last 3 or 4 days. So I'm like, are we on Charlotte's Web time? Has she gone to the great beyond? Does she lay her eggs and just leave? And then I'm like, oh gosh, please don't let there be that many garden spiders in my garden next year. Because I don't know how many eggs she can lay, but I bet it's a babillion. Although, maybe less mosquitoes. I don't know. We'll see. Ugh. Well, sending big love to you and your one small voice in the great big world. I hear it. We hear it. big love. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye.